I hadn't planned on going out there. It was a Friday, work was dead, and my phone was quiet, and I didn't have anybody to answer to that weekend. I looked at my apartment, the laundry piled up in the corner, the same TV show, and I felt like I just kind of needed some air. I couldn't handle another night in the hamster wheel. So I threw my gear in the truck: stove, tent bag, a little hatchet that I kept in the living room, a couple of tarps, cooler full of beer, and gas station grade food. Nothing fancy. I didn't really pack like a responsible adult, just kind of grabbed what I thought I would want and figured everything else would work itself out. You know, the American way. I headed out of town late afternoon, pointed the truck toward the highway. Once you're 20-30 minutes past that last grocery store, it starts to actually feel like you're slipping off the edge of the map. By the time you're 2 hours out, the radio goes to static, and it's just tree line after tree line, cattle fences, dirt road, and the sky. I kept driving. Eventually, I cut off the main road onto this older service road. It wasn't marked and there wasn't any signs, just a pair of ruts that go off through the trees. I've been down plenty of roads like that before on hunting trips and figured I'll just find a pullout and call it good. I wasn't trying to backpack 10 miles in or anything, just wanted to be where nobody else would bother me. But the thing is, I was not alone back there. Once I got deep enough, I started spotting these little pop-up camps tucked off the road. You know the kind: beat up old tents, folding tables, tarps strung between trees, a smoking ring of rocks that may or may not be legal, depending on the time of the year. Weekend people, you see kids on bikes, somebody's dog trotting along off the leash, a guy sitting in a lawn chair drinking beer like he's at a tailgating party. And one of those guys flagged me down. He was older, late 60s, maybe 70s, real sunburnt face, what my father called a tackle box skin. Long gray hair, stepped out almost right in front of my truck and lifted up his hand, so I slowed and rolled the window down. "Evening," he said, grinning at me. "You're getting out of here at the perfect time." "Yeah, is that right?" I said. He leaned in a little closer. Sitting there in my truck, I'll admit it was very weird. "You're all clearing out," he said. "You want quiet? I'll give you a spot that nobody bothers you." I don't know why I listened to him. Maybe it was his confidence or something else, I don't know. "Look, keep on this road," the old timer said. "You'll see this cattle gate on the left. It's not locked, just chained. Go through. After that it gets a little tight, but don't stop. You'll come to a pond. The east side's firm, the west side's soft. Camp on the east side. Nobody'll see you." Then he winked at me. Perfect weekend to be alone. I thanked him, patted my driver's door, and rolled on. The gate was in fact right where he said it was. Rusted, chain loop, but not locked. I unhooked it and drove through and latched it behind me. The trail narrowed to 2 dusty ruts under branches that scraped the sides of my truck. The further I went in, the quieter it seemed to get. No wind, not even birds. Then I saw a small pond reflecting in the trees, dead snags leaning across the water, and beside it was a flat little clearing that looked like it was made for one tent. Somebody had definitely camped there before. Stones in a ring, black with old ash, a few logs dragged into place, hidden off from the road, invisible unless you knew where you were looking. I only glimpsed a flash of it, to be honest. So I parked, hauled in my gear, and set up my camp. There was a nice 20-foot gap between the truck and my tent, as this little gulch kept me from driving in completely. It felt perfect, the kind of quiet that made me want to get drunk by myself. I didn't really waste any time. Got a fire going before dark, cracked open a beer and cooked my dinner: hot dogs, chili, and a bag of chips. I hung my Bluetooth speaker from a tree branch, played an old podcast, some kind of true crime show that I'd downloaded before. The voices sounded oddly comforting out there too, and I told myself I'm only gonna have a couple more beers before bed, but time slips when you're the only one awake for miles. By full dark, the fire had burned tall and hot, throwing light high up into the trees. I could see my breath in the cool air, hear the crackle of the logs, and sometimes other noises too. A shuffle, I thought, off in the brush, a snap behind the tent, a faint splash from the pond. Nothing close enough to see, but close enough to notice it. It's the wildlife, I told myself, because it always is, right? I listened to the speaker get louder, laughed at the hosts, and drank one more beer, then another. Around 11, I stumbled into my tent and crashed. Didn't even bother killing the fire or turning off the podcast. Didn't even take off my hoodie. I was asleep in seconds. I awoke, however, to pressure on my sleeping bag. It took me a second to understand that it wasn't just me. Something warm was pressing up against me. Heavy, slow moving, breathing. My first thought was a deer, then a human. I froze. I was still drunk, but I knew something was wrong. The air smelled awful. Wet rot, mildew, decay. I tried to listen, tried not to move, but my pulse was hammering so loud it kind of drowned everything else out. Whoever it was, they were lying right up against my side, thigh to thigh. I could feel every inhale. I didn't really think, I just kind of rolled hard and yanked the zipper, dove out barefoot into the dirt, and sailed right through the tent flap. The fire was embers now, my flashlight beam jerked across the tree line in the tent fabric. No one followed me out. No sound at all except for my own ragged breathing. Okay, I guess maybe I dreamed it. I was drunk, so I passed out and just imagined the whole thing, but holy shit, it was terrifying. Then I took note of something moving behind the light, a soft step in the dry needles. I froze again. I heard another step and then nothing. I checked the immediate area with my flashlight and found nothing, so I quickly decided it was time to go back to bed. I knew I tied on a pretty good one, drank far more than usual, and fell asleep with my tent unzipped. I figured a skunk or a raccoon had found its way in, following the scent of chili and Fritos onto my hands and breath. It made sense in my late night drunken stupor. When morning finally broke, the world looked normal again. The birds, the sunlight, the calm pond. I laughed to myself. It really must have been a nightmare, and I went to relight the fire for breakfast and froze. My speaker was now sitting on the table instead of hanging up in the tree. My firewood was now stacked in this strange pattern, sticks laid out in this weird formation like somebody else had been arranging them. In fact, everything was moved around to some degree. In the tree line, I saw him. He stood there motionless, watching me. At first, I thought it was the same man from the road that had told me about this very spot. Same age maybe, but this one looked a lot more feral. His beard was long and matted, his hair was a filthy nest. His clothes were nothing but tied strips of garbage bags and torn rags. His eyes looked vacant, dead gray, and he looked like he hadn't spoken to another person in years. Hey! I called out. He didn't even blink. Sir, are you okay out there? Still nothing. He stepped forward, one jerky movement at a time, arms twitching at his sides. I took a step back. He continued to come closer. It felt like I was watching some kind of zombie from a movie. All right, that's close enough. Just stop right there, I shouted. I still didn't get any kind of reaction though. I quickly snatched up the hatchet from the stump. All right, you come any closer and I swear to God. Still nothing, just that blank stare as he continued to march straight for me. In that moment, I realized I might actually have to kill this guy. I ran to the truck and grabbed my pistol from the glove box, fired one round into the dirt, and the shot echoed off all the trees, and that got him to stop. He flinched and then spat into the dirt, then turned his back to me and stood there. Stood still, held frozen solid, just facing away like he was waiting for something to happen. I kept the gun on him for what felt like forever. The guy still wasn't moving, not even swaying. That's when I realized there were footprints in the dirt between us. My campsite was now covered in them. Bare feet, long strides, toes dug deep into the dust. He'd been walking around and through my campsite for a while, maybe even all night. This time I didn't wait for him to move again. I kept my gun trained while I backed away toward the camp, tossing my gear into the truck one piece at a time: tent, cooler, sleeping bag. The whole time he stayed right there at the tree line, back to me. When I went to go grab my pack from the tent, a smell hit me again, that damp chemical human smell. The inside was telling. My blanket pushed aside, sleeping bag twisted, dirt smeared across the floor like something had crawled in it. The clothing and fabric on the tent floor was covered in dark stains, clearly human-shaped, and there was handprints on the side of my sleeping bag. I nearly threw up at the sight. That's what I felt last night. This psycho crawled into my tent and spooned me. I slammed the tailgate shut and got behind the wheel. The old man still hadn't moved. I started the engine, half expecting him to turn around, but he didn't. Stayed there, motionless, that tangle of black plastic rustling in the morning breeze. As I drove off, I caught one last look in the mirror. He was crouching now, really low to the ground, picking through the dirt where I'd been standing. I couldn't even see what he was doing, gathering up things maybe, small bits that I'd left behind, but it looked very, very important to him for some reason. When I reached the main road, I chained the gate behind me and didn't even look back. A ranger told me that there were all kinds of bizarre reports from out there. The land had been part of some kind of condemned federal property. Old mine shafts, chemical dumpings, toxic runoffs. Nobody should have been out there at all. He said the locals call it the basin. He also told me a few people still lived out there, if you call it that, and charming that I got to meet one of them. By August, the Lowveld had gone pretty silent. The grass was brittle and the air was full of dust, and the water holes had shrunk into muddy pits ringed with bones. This was the season when everything starved. Hyenas were thin, giraffes would stick to the deep plains. Even the vultures stayed grounded, conserving what little they had left. I'd been guiding safaris for more than a decade now, but I've never seen the bush this desperate. Predators had started turning on livestock, and the villagers were really scared. 2 weeks ago, a herdsman was taken near the riverbed. The radio chatter was constant. Missing goats, missing dogs, missing people. The prides were moving closer to the roads, shadowing vehicles, pacing the horizons. They are notoriously lazy hunters, so when things get hard, they'll kill pretty much anything they can find. It's a harsh reality of being in the desert. That morning, my partner Rory and I had drove out ahead of the client tour, scouting the route toward the dry pans. We didn't speak much. A few miles out, we saw them again. 9 lions, strung along the ridge, not resting in the grass like they should have been, but following along. They'd been doing it for days now. Unsettling, but nothing we hadn't seen before. "They're tracking us," Rory said, glassing up the slope. I nodded. "They're tracking something, but it might not be us." We reached the camp by sunset. No clients tonight, no other guided camps, just us and whatever lurked beyond the firelight. The air dropped fast, hitting the mid-40s by midnight. Somewhere far off, a lion roared, and another answered from the opposite direction. I told Rory to keep his rifle near and his bladder in check. Didn't need any goofy accidents. The tracks that we'd seen at dusk were very fresh. A big male's paw prints led straight toward camp before veering off into the scrub. They were here and didn't care who knew it. That night before turning in, I remember saying, if they're out there, they'll keep to the high grounds. Boy, was I wrong. I woke to pressure on my spine, hot, rhythmic, alive. Not weight like a person, but mass, breathing, and I froze. The canvas behind me had flexed with each exhale, heat radiating through my thermal. Something rumbled through the fabric, deep and steady, like a Mac engine. It took a second to understand what in fact I was feeling. Then my blood turned to ice. There was a lion laying against my tent. I could even feel the purr vibrating through my ribs. The air was smelling some kind of awful, musky and sweet and coppery, like meat left in the sun. I didn't dare move. "Eli," Rory whispered from his tent, voice cracked and shaking. "You awake?" I wanted to kill him for speaking, and for a moment, I felt its claw extend from the pad and into my back and hips. At that moment, I felt like a bit of food at the end of a fork. The lion's breathing then hitched and the weight shifted. The canvas groaned as it rose up, brushing my back and towering. The tent poles creaked, dirt popping beneath the stakes. I didn't need to see it to know. He was standing right there, paws level with my head, only a thin sheet of fabric between us now. My entire body tensed into a knot. My rifle sat 3 feet away. Might as well have been across the continent. It wouldn't have mattered anyway. There were others out there. The lion sniffed, long wet inhalations that pulled air straight out of the tent. His breath rolled through the seams, hot and rank. Then came the scrape of claws, 5 faint curls across the ground just beyond my hip. It was marking. I heard the sound of teeth grinding, this low groan. "Rory," I whispered. Almost no sound at all. I don't really know what compelled me to speak. Subconsciously, I think I was trying to speak my final words maybe. Help me. Ask and you shall receive. His tent zipper began to descend and a lion's growl flattened everything outside. Everything went primal after that. Snarls erupted between us, different pitches overlapping. The pride was answering the male. I heard one sprint past my tent, heavy paws tail whipping the canvas. Another hit something metal with a clang. In the morning, we'd see it was the truck. Rory screamed, but it cut off after a second. Realized just how fatal the situation was. Any amount of attention could be death. My heart pounded so hard that it shook my teeth. I could feel the ground vibrating with their movement. One lion roared close enough that it brought tears to my eyes. The sound wasn't volume, it was pressure. My eardrums flexed before it. The tent even seemed to breathe with it, bowing in and then out. It really felt like a movie. Everything told me that I was about to die. Another lion came by, female by the lighter steps, charged through the far side of the camp. I heard her slam against the cooler, the lid popping open, tin cans and plastic scattering around. Then this screeching tear as the claws raked the bin around the campsite. Rory made the mistake of flicking on his headlamp. The beam cut through the wall of my tent, bright white and trembling, and in that slice of light, I saw its shadow, the male's head. It was massive and round, the muzzle pushing the canvas inward. Every whisker impression was visible. His jaws were open, and I saw the silhouette of his teeth now cutting across the fabric, inches from my face. I swear you could see steam rising up from where his breath hit. I stopped breathing entirely. My chest ached in this bad way, eyes still watering. My heartbeat now became the only thing I could hear. He huffed again, this deep, irritated gust that flapped open the canvas against my cheek. Then, out in the dark, a lioness gave this short, sharp grunt, and they all sprang into motion. The male snarled annoyed, tail thudding the ground, then stepped back. The heat peeled away from the tent wall and the outline then vanished. He turned his body, brushing up against the entire length of the canvas as he passed it, his mane rasping like sandpaper. I heard the thud of each paw as he walked towards Rory's tent. "Don't move, man," I whispered. His light went dark, and the only sound the lions were making now was them pacing around us, breathing and tails whipping up against the dust, at least 4 of them, maybe more. The male then froze again, and he made this sound, a deep, chesty snort, and the others went quiet instantly. I pictured them all crouched, eyes reflecting the starlight, paws kneading through my skin, teeth, claws, my blood soaking into the sand. As soon as it started, they just kind of moved off. It wasn't in a panic, just this sudden burst of controlled energy. After a few seconds, we couldn't even hear them anymore. The silence they left behind was worse than the noise. My whole body was now soaked in sweat, freezing against the night. What the hell just happened? After a long time, I heard Rory whisper to me, "You alive?" "Yeah," I croaked. "You?" "I think so." We stayed awake until the sky started to lighten up, rifles in reach, listening for a return that never came. By sunrise, the camp looked like it had survived some kind of storm. The fire pit was scattered with paw prints, lapping in every single direction. The cooler lay tipped on its side, lid torn off, edges shredded. My tent sagged from where that lion had leaned on it, canvas slick with dew and greasy film of some kind. I stepped outside and felt the cold air hit my face. It was quite sobering. The horizon glowed pale and gold. It felt like a victory. Rory then came out after me, eyes hollow. Neither of us spoke. The prints were everywhere, some bigger than dinner plates, deep enough to hold shadows. You could see where the male had roamed, where the ladies had prowled, and where another had been pacing Rory's tent. It wasn't a visit, it was some kind of inspection. "They could have easily taken us," he muttered. I nodded, no need for another comment. The radio crackled in the dirt below the table, crate hissing static. I turned the dial with numb fingers until a voice cut through, urgent and breathless, full of noise. "Repeat, 1 confirmed fatality in Sekwan village. Male adult, attacked during the night." Rory and I locked eyes. The radio kept talking. "Livestock pen destroyed, 2 goats taken. Tracks indicate a pride, at least 6 strong, moving southwest." Southwest, away from us. I lowered the radio. The bush went quiet again, but it felt more alive, like anything could step out of that high grass. They were hunting, Rory said to me. Consider yourself lucky. He frowned, nodding. I looked out across the open plain, and from where we stood, you could see the ridgeline, faint tracks etching into the dust. On the other side was a town where a man had now died, a place where we took our safaris for supplies on a regular basis. For whatever reason that night, the lions didn't kill us, and I accepted that without question. What else could I really do? The plains are super unforgiving out here. Survival is moving on from victories, because almost all of them are temporary.